Hello, this is your lazy dev and welcome to my YouTube channel. In our previous video, we have learned about NoSQL databases, different types of NoSQL database, and MongoDB being a document database. And then we have seen how to install MongoDB. After installation, we have successfully connected to MongoDB from our API and tried out different endpoints. That is, we have implemented CRUD operations in our API using MongoDB. But the thing is, none of the developers would like to follow this kind of code. The reason being, in each and every controller that I create or that I keep adding to this project, I need to repeat the same set of steps. If I wish to migrate this MongoDB to cloud, or MongoDB itself provides Atlas, which is DB as a service. So if I migrate to any of those locations, then I need to change this connection string in each and every controller. We have all the database related logic in our controller, which shouldn't be the case. We should always follow single responsibility. That means each and every class should have only one responsibility to handle. If this is a controller, then it should accept requests, check for model state validation, throw appropriate responses. Maybe it is a OK response or not found, or in case of any exceptions, it should be handled appropriately. That is the responsibility of controller. We shouldn't add all the business logic or the code to connect with the database in the controller. So that is the reason today in this video we are going to see how can we separate these two concerns. That is, how we can separate this database code from the controller's code. So without any further delay, let's get started. To separate our database code from this controller code, there are two ways. One, you can add a class library and add a reference to that class library from this to-do API project. And the second one is you can just add a new folder over here and place your files. That is the classes that connect to the database in the to-do API itself. For now, I'll be creating a new folder. I am not going to add a new class library because this project is not that huge that I need a separate class library to arrange all my files accordingly. So let's go ahead and create a new folder. Data access layer. So now we want to also enable the dependency injection. So that's the reason I will be creating two files. One is interface and another one is the class. Tasks repository. Again, adding an interface, there are two ways. You can add a new item and choose interface, or you can go with class and then rename it. itasks repository, change class to interface, and then you can have few methods over here. But before that, we need to make few more changes. We have this to do class over here. I would like to make some changes to this to do so that we can get rid of this to do DTO. Why I'm saying this? Because here we are doing some stupid stuff, that is converting this object ID, passing this object ID and then converting that object ID to string. I want to get rid of all those things, so I'll just add another attribute saying bson representation bson type dot object ID. So this will communicate with MongoDB. This will say that this particular field, this particular property is an object ID and this is the primary key. Now I can change this to string. So once I do this, I can get rid of this public class to do. This was a redundant code. We can fix these errors later. First, let's focus on finishing up our data access layer. I will add new folder within data access layer and name it as entities. To do, get rid of this using namespaces, we don't need them. Cut this class and paste it over here. Now we can fix these errors by saying, and this one by using mongodb.json. Step 1 done. Let's add the constructor, and then we will be using iConfiguration from Microsoft extensions.configuration. Let's create a private read only iConfiguration configuration, and then let's assign this configuration to this. This is how we can do dependency injection. Although this video is not about dependency injection, please do not worry if you do not know how to do dependency injection in ASP.NET Core. I'll be creating a detailed video of dependency injection in future. For now, let's focus on building this tasks repository. So with the help of this configuration object, I'll be reading the connection string from appsettings.json file. So now let's open the command prompt. Go to the path where MongoDB is installed. And run mongo command. Let's acquire the connection string. Paste it in appsettings.json. Let's create a new property. Okay, this already gives a pop-up to add connection strings. We can do that, and here I can have a value. Let's name it as Mongo and the connection string, and then we would need all these 3 lines of code. And inside this Mongo client, I can do underscore configuration dot get connection string, and then the name of the string is Mongo. Let me copy the declaration as well, paste it over here, and then resolve all the errors. And now we are in a good shape to go ahead and add the CRUD operations. So let's go ahead and declare those methods in our interface. The first one would be it will return a list of to-do items. Before that, let me clean up this. Yeah, now we can fix these errors. Get all tasks, then get task by ID, and here the ID would be in a format of string, so we will be passing string ID. The return type is void add a to-do task void update to-do task and void delete string ID. I want to implement all these methods inside my tasks repository. So let me first implement this interface. So tasks repository class implements itasks repository interface. So implement interface. This has given me the template for all the methods. So right now none of the methods are implemented, so the default code is throw new not implemented exception. Let us start with get all tasks. We don't need to double our efforts, we can just go ahead and copy this code. This is the wrong one. Let me go back. Return collection.find new bison document dot to list. Copy this, paste it in get by id, and then dot first or default e dot id equals the id that we have passed, and then we can implement the add method. Collection.insert1, instead of request we need to replace this by task. Same with update. And we'll do the same with delete. We have successfully created this data access layer with to-do entity and tasks repository with itasks repository interface. Now our next goal is to clean up the code in to-do controller.cs. Let's get rid of these declarations also. Now let's try to inject the tasks repository in our controller. I need an object of tasks repository, so private read only itasks repository tasks repository, inject it in the controller. Tasks repository equal to underscore tasks repository. And then tasks repository dot get all tasks is one method. Tasks repository dot get task by id, and then we pass the id. If result is not null, then just return result. Tasks repository dot add request tasks repository dot update request tasks repository dot delete id. And now if we see, the build is successful. That means the code is perfectly fine. But then if you try to run this application, then we might run into an issue. So if I try to run this get all endpoint, then it says system.invalid operation exception, unable to resolve service for type to-do api.dataaccesslayer.itasks repository. Though we have tried to inject it in our controller, we need to follow one more step. Let's go to startup.cs, and here let's mention services dot add singleton, and then I need to specify when someone asks for itasks repository, then provide them an instance of tasks repository. That's how you configure dependency injection in .NET Core API. Now let's try to save this and run this once again, and we should get rid of that error. Yep, here you need to pay attention to two things. One, we got rid of that error by adding this add singleton code, and the other one is this is the first time we are running after changing all our code structure. Also, the entity, in our previous video we did all those redundant steps to achieve this string id, that means conversion of object id to string. But in this video we have taken a much more simpler approach to achieve our functionality, that is converting an object id to string. So now let's try to retrieve one of these records. Try it out, execute, and here you see 200 OK response with learn C#. Similarly, all other endpoints should work absolutely fine. Let me remove this, name as learn react as well, and active true, execute. 201 created successfully. Let's go back to get all tasks, execute, and here we can see learn react as well added to the database. So this is how you can separate out the responsibilities of controller layer and the data access layer. Although we did not create a separate layer, we just added all those classes to the folder because this is a small application and easily maintainable. We have also taken a look on how we can achieve dependency injection. So I hope you have learned something new out of this video and you enjoyed this. We'll meet in the next video. Until then, keep learning. Don't be a lazy dev. Thank you.